I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is navigating conflict. Sounds like a lot of fun, right? Let's figure it out. But before we get started, let's take a minute to get present and take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clear, crisp oxygen just flooding your lungs and flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells and all your organs and bringing vital life energy throughout your body and being. As you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating all your cells, electrifying and energizing all your electrons, all your molecules, connecting you with the world beyond. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining stress, tension, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together and softly, softly, softly rub your fingers against your palms to feel the deliciousness of that sensation and bring yourselves present right here, right now. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, what a fun topic, conflict. We all have it at some time or at one or time or another in our lives, right? And the question is it worth, how do we navigate it? Do we avoid it? Do we walk away from it? Do we try to resolve it? Do we give ourselves a cool down period and then come back and allow cooler heads to prevail and hopefully uh, navigate through? And what is prompting this conversation is that I am part of a group of women that are really amazing women, heartfelt and uh, just big hearted and wonderful. And we meet on a weekly basis, and we have there's a bit of a kerfuffle, like an upset within the group, and it centers. Yeah, I'm kind of at the center of it, so I'm thinking about this, how to navigate this situation, and looking at my own reactions and seeing that my first response was to just say, okay, I'm out. And I've been looking at that and looking at how to navigate resolving this conflict. And um, there's so many different emotions and perspectives that arise in my thinking, and looking at trying to navigate this without making anybody wrong, without like being able to maintain a sense of equanimity and respect and love and connection in the um, in the course of trying to navigate this. And I think that in some circumstances, um, when conflict arises, we can maybe come to a place of mutual respect to agree to disagree. Um, and I I wonder, I wonder if we create space to hear each other's hearts, perhaps that is a way to resolve conflict. I mean, when we feel a sense of personal offense, what does it take? What does it take to step off of that place of being right, of being righteous, of being offended? And is it appropriate? Is it always appropriate to do so? So I'm wondering, like we all find places where, like we get to ask ourselves, is this the hill I'm willing to die on? And what is it going to cost me, and what is it going to cost others? And I, I I'm I'm thinking about how when we share our hearts, and others, I think that there's a risk, right? There's a risk in trying to navigate conflict, because and resolve it, because there's a deeper sharing, there's a deeper vulnerability that has to take place in order for that resolution to occur. Maybe I'm wondering if, like, do the wounds need to be aired? Do we need to be airing our opinions and our reactions? Do we need to be explaining ourselves? Um, I don't see any comments yet. So if you're there, there we go. Kimberly, welcome, welcome. Thank you for that, for the sunshine. I'm talking today. We're talking about navigating conflict, and I have this situation that I am trying to figure out my path, to see my way through. And I figured it would be a great thing to have a conversation with you guys about, because I'm sure I'm not the only one that navigates conflict from time to time. So, especially, I think that when we are confronted with conflict, it gives us an opportunity to recognize the value that we place in our relationships. Oh, wow, Rosalind, how amazing. That's really interesting. So, Rosalind says, I'm pursuing a religious exemption from wearing a mask at work. Wow. Well, now talk about conflict, right? So I didn't know that that was even an option, and I didn't know that there are places that are requiring masks at work. Um, Given that I work at home and independently, it's a non-issue for me, so I'm not confronted with that. So really, really interesting. A religious exemption. That's kind of brilliant. Um, and I, how do you go about doing that? And congratulations for your courage to do that, because I would imagine that there's a lot of social pressure in that kind of situation. And Kimberly says, Rosalind, be brave and strong. I'm hoping for the best. So the healthyamerican.org. Interesting. I will check this out. I just pulled it up. I'm very interested about that. Uh, Very interesting times we're living in, right? So again, navigating conflict. You're talking about, um, wow. I'm sorry. I just sort of got derailed by that, because it's a big uh, issue, certainly socially right now, and with lots and lots of different opinions and different sides of things, and different perceptions. And I'm going to bring this back around to the topic of conflict. and how do we navigate it? Maybe understanding the nature of conflict and um, uh, where people feel safe, and what does it mean to feel safe. And I think that that safety lies in a certain consensus about the rules, or about the way things are, or the perception of the world, perhaps. And if we're all in agreement that there is, in the case of masks, health danger out there, and that a way to mitigate that danger is by wearing masks, then it makes sense to wear masks. If we're not all in agreement that there's a danger, and we are being forced to, or mandated to, um, sort of toe the collective line, if we don't believe that that's the case, then it turns into a very different situation. And so I'm just looking at the mechanics of that. And in this group that I'm in, a safe space was allowing everybody to have their space to speak. And when it feels like that um, that safety or that allowance has been violated, then um, then the safety of the space shifts, or the experience of safety of the space shifts. And when we talk about conflict, I'm just trying to tease this apart. It seems like Maggie's on the plant again. Just give me 1 second. So, um, with we each have our own perceptions, and when our perception is challenged, or when our intention is challenged, um, then we may have a reactivity. We may feel reactive about it. And I'm going to steer clear for the moment of the mask issue, because it's we all have our different perceptions around it, and it is a very socially charged issue right now. And maybe one of my thoughts in this conflict resolution is that potentially, if there's a willingness on all sides to find some kind of resolution, that perhaps one of the elements that would enhance the effort is more information. So if we have more information about the experience of the individuals that are in conflict, then we might be able to come to a greater, from that place of greater understanding, maybe we can find a path to resolution. We may not end up agreeing, but maybe the understanding can bring us back into connection with one another. And maybe even with the issue of the masks, what happens is we all have different amounts of information. We all have varying, or not even just amounts of information, but sources of information. And I'm wondering if it may be, in your pursuit of the religious exemption, Rosalind, it may provide an opportunity to share information with people from your vantage point that might not otherwise have been privy to that information. And it may, um, I think this is where the respectfulness comes in, uh, with with trying to resolve conflict. So Christina says, I have come to the decision that sometimes conflict isn't even worth fussing about. There are some that thrive off drama and conflict. If I'm number 30 in a line of people who have experienced conflict with an individual, it may be time just to move on. So that's very much part of this conversation is what conflict is worth resolving and what conflict do we just say, I'm out of here, and what I noticed in this situation that I'm talking about for me is that my first response was, well, maybe it's time for me to just not be in this group anymore. And um and then I'm I'm still considering that that's a possibility. This isn't a run of the mill kind of conflict, in that, it's not like a person who's having conflict over and over with other people. And it's not that kind of situation. This is a situation where we're a group of women that really have deep caring for each other. And um, it's interesting to me that one of my first responses was, well, maybe I'll just move on. And I wasn't the only one who had that response. Um, and um, the value of the relationships that I have within that group is high enough to me that I am considering what is it that it would take to resolve this conflict. Is it resolvable? Is it um, time to move on? Is it something that more information would impact? And also, like, me living into my highest self, what does it look like to show up for this, for myself and for the other people involved? How can I show up in a way that honors me and honors them and honors my intentions. My intentions are to be loving and respectful, and to be accountable for my actions and my words. And um, so much conflict, it seems, comes from a place of reactivity. And so I can say that this definitely, the situation, I felt reactive and I reacted. And being accountable to the thing that I reacted to, like, it's a bit of a confusion, to be running in my own head. And at the same time, good morning, Lisa. So glad to have you with us. We're talking about navigating conflict and how do we how do we decide how to move through what could be very difficult conversations. Difficult conversations that expose thoughts and feelings and perspectives that might might be might be that could potentially be damaging or hurtful to other people. How do we share a perspective that could be hurtful to somebody with without it being hurtful, or without it being or to keep it in coming from love? Challenging, right? Like, um a lot of times the tendency is to just say, forget it, I'm just not going to say it. you know Better not said. And at what cost is what it comes to. So Kimberly, hi Kimberly. Oh, I already said hi to you. I'm sorry. And Kimberly says you have to listen to your intuition. I agree, and um, I'm not sure what is my intuition and my reaction in this situation, and making that discernment can be challenging in the thick of it, right? And good morning, Elaine. So glad to have you with us. We're talking about navigating conflict, and I can say that conflict doesn't arise that frequently in my life anymore. It used to be kind of a baseline that, like that there was a lot of conflict, not so much anymore. And there's a situation that I'm navigating in a group that of women that I love, um, and just noticing the dynamics that are coming up for me. I figured I'm not the only one that experiences these kind of things, so we get to talk about it together. So Christina says each situation is different. The conflict I had interfered with too much of both my work and my personal life. And I hear you there. Exactly. It's like, is it worth it? We get to decide, is it worth it? And what does make it worth it? And so Kimberly says, gut instincts. It's okay not to be okay. Yeah. Yeah. And so, like, there was something happening, in group dynamics. It's always interesting to me to be looking at how to um, navigate group dynamics. I'm pretty good one on one, and I've gotten so much better over the years in group. But there are times when, it's like the pack, and we get to navigate how to balance these crazy dynamics. So Kimberly says, "I know you'll make the right choices for you. Sending positive vibes your way." Thank you, Kimberly. You know, I'm not a shrinking violet, so I'm not one to avoid conflict typically, um, which is why um, why my first reaction in this situation surprised me a bit. And then I realized it takes courage to step into being vulnerable in in a situation where you can readily be judged, and also to recognize the judgments that I've imposed and the dynamic that I initiated, so to be accountable and responsible for that disruption, and also, like, I realized that in this situation I was the initial um, spark of the conflict, or I created the initial spark of the conflict, and there's all these ramifications of that. And looking at the situation, I recognize that part of me really was trying, uh, now thinking about it, wants to justify my behavior, my action, my words. And I'm looking at the distinction between explaining and justifying, you know. So Elaine says conflict is a beautiful experience, and there's more coming. So I'm just going to skip for a second to conflict teaches us to truly get present and to first know when to pull away, when we are not to say nothing when we are not to say nothing at all, and when the time is right, we know what we want to do, coming from a place of peace and understanding. Yeah, and getting to that place of peace and understanding is a very interesting experience in and of itself, for sure. And Lisa says, if I have the choice of fight or flight, I choose flight. No, I address it head on. If no, I address it head on. If the other person isn't responsive, I just walk away and let it roll off my back. So when it's one-on-one, that's one thing. When it's a whole group, it's a whole other thing too. So um, I am choosing neither fight nor flight. I think I'm choosing to be present to the best of my ability, and present to my heart and my connection, and to do my best to move from that place rather than the place of defensiveness or reactivity. So, oh, I'm sorry. Lisa corrected no to now. So it's now I address it head on. So the choice of fight or flight, now I address it head on. If the other person isn't responsive, I just walk away and let it roll off my back. Well, I'm looking at this as an opportunity for growth for me, and um, hopefully, like what my intention would be, and I get to set an intention. My intention is not to be right, not to defend myself, not to justify. My intention is to breed deeper understanding and connection. And this is really powerful for me to be able to connect to that intention now before I go into this group dynamic a little bit later. So Christina says, Lisa, I'm the same. I usually will confront head on initially, and if the other person is unresponsive or 100% untruthful, I stop. And and so I think that that is where I'm coming from too. Is let's address it, and we'll see where we go. And there may be a place where you just say it's not resolvable, or it's not worth resolving, um, and um, and then walk away. So I'm in the place where I'm ready to confront it or address it, and to the best of my ability, and go from there. So uh, I have a client in 2 minutes, so I am going to call it a morning. I so appreciate this conversation with you, and I really, really, really um, am grateful for this forum to sort of try and navigate these sticky places sometimes, right? So, anyway, I'm Mira Rubin. That's Maggie in the background. And this is the Core Connection. We go live each weekday morning here on Enlightened World Network, and on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page. I love being here with you, and so, so, so appreciate your contributions. I don't have time to read. Let's see. Elaine says, yes, working out conflict in a group is so powerful and beautiful. Thank you for sharing. That takes courage in ourselves to know in every now, all is working out, and all is learning through this beautiful process. Thank you. And Christina says, best of luck. Have a peaceful resolution more times than not. Yes. And wonderful day to all of you. So much love.